Welcome on in, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is episode 67 today. We're looking at AFLW Week 8 of football. So we're going to look at all of the Round 7 matches. We'll be reviewing all of them. We'll then jump into a preview for all the Round 8 matches, as we do every Monday over here. Podcast goes live twice a week. YouTube, Spotify. You know, the drill. One episode, this one, Monday each week, is AFLW time. Friday episode each week at the moment is AFL Men's up until the end of the AFLW season. And then we'll probably tone it back to one episode a week, maybe even have a few weeks off. We'll wait and see. But for now, we're still running 2 a week, so make sure you check them out. YouTube, Spotify, twice a week. Check out all the social medias. Plenty of content over everywhere, really. Twitter, we get some live game comments. TikTok, a little bit quiet now that the men's season's finished, but we'll continue doing some content over there. Instagram, as always. And, yeah, go check it out. All Aussie Rules everywhere. Let's jump into the action from the weekend. We had 11 games. The final week of there being teams playing multiple games in a round for the season. Every team has now played 8 games through 7 weeks. So we'll jump into all of them. We started on Tuesday with St Kilda hosting GWS. And St Kilda got themselves back into form with this one. They won at 7-7-49 to 2-3-15 for the GWS Giants. To be honest, it was looking pretty much over pretty early in this one. It was 6-0 at half time. Second half was only 1-2 in favour of the Giants winning the second half. So a little bit of a better second half from the Giants, but overall a really solid performance from the Saints after a couple of weeks where they struggled a little bit because their start of the season was fantastic. They won their first few, then they lost a few in a row, but this was just what they needed. I look at some of the numbers behind this one. GWS actually got plenty of the football. They even got it forward reasonably well, 27 to 29 inside 50s, so not too much down on that. But their efficiency going forward just was not there. Most of their disposals were handballs as well. They almost went 1-1, which is really quite high. Had almost double the handballs of St Kilda. They did well in the clearance game. 8-3 in centre clearances, 28-25 in stoppage clearances. Contested footy was really good from them, but St Kilda just showed their class, I guess, in the end, and their ability to convert their opportunities into goals, and that's probably the main factor in the result here. They did it early, and they did it often enough. Multiple goal kickers in this one. Jesse Wardlaw for St Kilda kicked 3. Alicia Eva for GWS kicked 2. They were the only multiple goal scorers in this game. Best players in this one for St Kilda, Jamie Lambert was probably close to best on ground, if not best on ground. 27 touches, 11 tackles, 8 clearances, 335 metres gained and 2 goal assists. Maybe the only competition for best on ground was Alice Parker for GWS. She had 30 touches, 10 clearances, 8 tackles. So another really good game. Also, St Kilda had Tiana Smith kick a goal, 17 touches, 9 tackles. Really good performance. Charlotte Simpson had 12 tackles. And as we said, Jesse Wardlaw kicked 3 goals from 10 touches. So a good performance from her. For GWS, as we said, Alice Parker was their best player. Rebecca Beeson also had 24 touches, was good. And a lot of role players throughout the rest of their team. We'll jump into the next game. We had Adelaide-Melbourne. This was a funny old game. Let's not beat around the bush, because Adelaide, one of the top fancies. Melbourne kind of struggling this year, even though early season they were expected to do pretty well. And it was a low-scoring game where it was just an arm wrestle for big chunks of it. Melbourne kicked 2 goals in the first quarter to lead 13-1 at quarter time, and then Adelaide slowly pegged their way back. Melbourne only managed 3 points after quarter time, but in the end, Adelaide kicked really poorly, kicked 1 goal 8, and end up losing it by 2 points. Disappointing result for Adelaide, but a result that kept Melbourne's slim chances alive. Their percentage is still really, really poor, but it just gives them a little hope going into the last few weeks. Disposals were dominated by Adelaide here, plus 43 for the match, plus 4 inside 50s. What else have we got? Clearances, Adelaide dominated 5-1 centre clearances. Contested footy, uncontested footy, the way of the Crows. They will 100% be kicking themselves in this one. They kicked 1 goal 8, which is really poor in front of goal. Tackle count was pretty high for both teams, 86-82. Best players in this one. Well, there weren't many goals. There was only 3 for the match. So no multiple goal kickers for either team. Best players. We'll start with Melbourne. Tyler Hanks. She had 24 touches, was really good. Eliza McNamara, 20 touches as well, was very good. And yeah, other than that, not too much for Melbourne, but they got the job done, and that's all that matters. Meanwhile, for Adelaide, their big stars turned out, got plenty of the ball. In the end, it wasn't enough for them though. Ebony Marinoff played a really good game. Spoiler alert, not her best game of the weekend, because Sunday she went even bigger. But 29 touches, 17 tackles, 10 clearances. Huge. Probably in the votes again there in that match. Chelsea Randall, 22 touches, 9 tackles. Good game. And Anne Hatchard, as always, 28 touches, 7 clearances, 5 tackles. The 3 big guns for Adelaide's midfield, all racking them up, all getting plenty of it, all doing a lot with it. Unfortunately, just couldn't get the scores on the board. Kicking very poorly in front of goal did the Crows. So, yeah, that's that game. We'll jump on to the Thursday night game. It was Port Adelaide and Collingwood. Apparently I can't talk anymore. It was over at Alberton Oval on Thursday night, and this was a weird one. She was windy very much one way. Port Adelaide had the wind in the first and third quarters. Collingwood had the wind in the second and fourth quarters. And pretty much all the scoring went to the one end. So it was... I think every goal was kicked to the one end. And a total of 5 behinds were kicked to the non-wind end for the game. So it was... massively advantage to be going with the wind. Port Adelaide didn't really make too much use of it in the first quarter, just kicking 1 goal 5-0-3 for Collingwood. Collingwood then came out in the second quarter, did make use of the wind completely. 2 goals 3 they kicked to 0-1 for Port Adelaide. But Port Adelaide in that third quarter really got themselves going. They were probably the better team all night. They just weren't able to capitalise on their wind in the first quarter. But in that third quarter, they did really well. They kicked 3 goals 2, and Collingwood didn't get a score. And then Collingwood came home with the wind, managed a late goal, but basically Port Adelaide just shut them down in that last quarter, did what they needed to, and held on for the 8-point victory. And I mean, Collingwood haven't won many games this year, so it's not that surprising that Port Adelaide got it, but for the first time in club history, the Port Adelaide AFLW team has won 3 games in a row, so that's fantastic for them. Gives themselves a little bit of a chance heading into the final 3 games. They're level with 8th on the ladder, just down on percentage. So, really positive signs for them. They could potentially be playing finals this year. They ended up having +5 inside 50s. I think they used the ball in a way better than Collingwood. Collingwood had a lot of the ball. Had an extra 21 disposals, mainly through handballs, which meant Collingwood retained the ball a bit better, but they didn't really threaten the field position as much as Port Adelaide did in this one. Clearances were dominated by Port Adelaide. One of the biggest dominations in clearances you'll ever see in any football. It was 42-13 for the match, mainly through stoppage clearances, which were 36-10, but even centre clearances were 6-3. So Port Adelaide just dominated the clearance game all day long, which is a big disappointment for Collingwood, in all honesty, because their best players are in the midfield. Benici, Davey, Frederick in the ruck. These are their key players, their best players, and they just couldn't get the ball out of the centre all day, and that's 100% the reason they lost this game. Too many clearances to Port Adelaide, which just allowed Port Adelaide to control field position, even when the wind was against them. They're getting the ball away from stoppage every time, so that really helps. Contested footy was dominated by Port Adelaide. Well, not dominated, but certainly controlled, whereas uncontested footy was controlled by Collingwood, who didn't turn it over much, just 40 turnovers, which is their best result this year in terms of turnovers, and one of the better results in all AFLW this season. 40 is a very low number, but they just couldn't turn it into scores in the end, and couldn't really dominate that field position as much as they wanted to, mainly in that last quarter. Conceded probably one more goal than they wanted to in the third quarter, gave themselves a bit of a challenge in that last one and just couldn't overcome it. We saw potentially goal and mark of the year in the one game in this one. We saw a fantastic goal by Gemma Houghton in the third quarter. I think it was the first goal of the third quarter. And then we also saw from Port Adelaide again, maybe mark of the year, Matilda Schultz took an absolute screamer and finished it off with a goal. So go check out those highlights, because this game was very entertaining. In terms of highlights, there were some very good plays made. No multiple goal scorers in this game, so we'll jump on to best players. First of all, Port Adelaide, Matilda Schultz, as I said, took an absolute screamer, kicked a goal, 15 touches, 1 goal, 19 hit-outs, 9 clearances, 390 metres gained. Really, really good performance by the ruckman for Port Adelaide. Abby Dowrick had 21 touches, was good. Other than that, a lot of role players, nothing that stands out too much off the page. Meanwhile, for Collingwood, Michaela Cann was, in all honesty, their best player. 21 touches, 1 goal, 11 tackles, did her role really well. Britt Benici, 12 tackles, but only the 9 disposals, which is quite low for her. Ruby Schleiser, 17 touches. I don't know where I got 20 from. Role players the rest of the way down for Collingwood. A little bit disappointing with players like Davey and Benici, both going quite a fair way below the amount of disposals they normally get, and probably a major reason why perhaps they couldn't get the ball out of the centre was just the fact that those two were performing below par. Friday night football was Bulldogs Essendon. It was at Whitten Oval, and it was not the highest scoring game, although Essendon did turn up in the last quarter and kick a couple. So at 3-quarter time in this one, it was 1-6 for Essendon to 0-2 for the Bulldogs. But as I said, the Bombers did kick away in that last quarter. They managed 2-2 in the last quarter, just to give themselves a comfortable win by 23 points. Continues Bulldogs' rough little form. They started the season poorly. They started to show some positive signs, but their last couple of weeks have been very disappointing for them. This game was dominated by Essendon. In all honesty, they should have won by a lot more than they did. 95 extra disposals they had in this one. Plenty more kicks, plenty more handballs. Plus 16 inside 50s. They dominated the territory. Clearances were actually pretty good for Bulldogs. They went 23 and 14 from stoppage clearances. They did lose centre clearances 0-5, which is a little bit disappointing, but their stoppage clearance work was okay. Contested footy, once again, they were okay in the contest. It's just allowing that uncontested football week in, week out is a big issue for the Bulldogs. They almost went minus 100 in uncontested football in this game, and in all honesty, you're not going to win any games of football if you're losing uncontested football by 100. It's just too much loose ball. Essendon had 100 marks in this match, which is an astronomical amount of marks in a game. Like in an AFLW game, you just don't see 100 marks in a match. For reference, Essendon's previous best before this one was 73, which was last week. And before this week, they were averaging just 45 marks a game, and they went and had 100 in this one. So, shows how much uncontested football they had and how much they just controlled this whole match. Kicking 3 goals 8 certainly hurt them. They could have, if they kick 5 goals 6 even, they win this even more comfortably. But as has been, I guess, the case across the board with a lot of teams, the inaccuracy does hurt a little bit, but in this situation, it didn't hurt them too much because they won the game still. Best players in this one, no multiple goal scorers. There was only 3 goal scorers for the game, all Bombers players. Best players on the ground. For the Bombers, Radford, 22 touches, was solid. Prespakis was probably best for Essendon. 27 touches, 3 clearances, 2 behinds, so could have had an outstanding game. Nescowan, 29 touches, racks them up week in, week out. Georgia Clark also good. For the Bulldogs, nobody outstanding, in all honesty. Elizabeth Georgakafis, 25 touches, 5 tackles, was good. Outside of that, I'm not fully convinced that they had a great game. They certainly didn't get much control of the football or any part of this match, in all honesty. We'll jump on to Saturday football. There was 4 games. We lead off with Hawthorn versus West Coast. This was at Kinetic Stadium in Frankston, and wowee, are the Hawkers flying. They weren't expected to do too great this year, in all honesty. They've probably been the biggest surprise packet so far this year. They're in the top 4 at the moment, and in all honesty, they haven't had the toughest run up to this point, and also their remaining 3 games are not that difficult. It's very hard to see a world where they don't finish top 4 with what they have left. So double chance for the Hawks. They've got a big chance to go a long way into September as well. Massive for them. They're playing outstanding football. They're the highest scoring team at the moment in the AFLW. All their games are entertaining, and they absolutely smoked the Eagles by 66 points, kicking 11-8 to the Eagles' 1-2. Just a domination in all facets of the game. Mainly field position. 50 inside 50s to 17 for this match is an absolute flogging. +5 in clearances. Controlled contested footy, controlled uncontested football. Barely turned it over. Just about the perfect game from Hawthorn. They kicked 11 goals 8 to West Coast 1-2, 71 tackles to 46. They just controlled every facet of it. And as I said, near perfect from Hawthorn in this one. Multiple goal scorers. There was 3 of them, all for Hawthorn. Gilroy kicked 3, Stevenson kicked 2, and Emily Bates also kicked 2. Best players, obviously mainly going to be Hawthorn players because, let's be honest, they absolutely smoked them. McDonough kicked 1 goal from 20 touches with 6 tackles and a clearance. Really good game. Emily Bates kicked 2 goals, 22 touches, 8 clearances. Liza West kicked 1 goal from 22 touches and 9 clearances. Gilroy, 3 goals from 13 touches. You could read off another 5 or 6 players. They were just across the board really, really good in this one. For West Coast, probably their best, arguably either Charlotte Thomas or Ella Roberts, were both solid. Thomas did have 26 touches, so probably in favour of her in this one. But in all honesty, they were just outclassed by a mile in this one. Jumping on to the next game, it was Richmond Geelong. Big game, this one. Richmond pushing to try and stay within reach of the top 4, and Geelong trying to stay in reach of the top 8. And it went the way of the Tigers here. They kicked 6-10-46 to 5-9-39. So both teams kicked poorly in front of goal. It was a bit of a seesawing battle. Geelong got out early. Then Richmond took over just before halftime. Geelong took the lead back multiple times in the second half. A lot of lead changes in this one. It was an entertaining match. But in the end, Richmond came out on top. They were up by a point when Katie Brennan kicked a goal late to give them a 7-point lead, and in the end, the win. A look at the stats in this one, pretty even contest. Geelong actually did dominate the inside 50s 33-29. Disposal count was very close for both teams. Clearances went the way of Richmond. Their midfield really did a good job in the middle, both centre clearances and stoppage clearances. But Geelong kind of wrestled their way back into the game after clearance work, and in all honesty, probably will be kicking themselves that they didn't win it. That's not to say that Richmond didn't deserve the win. I could have seen either team winning this one. It was a bit of a coin flip, I guess, and in the end, Richmond take the points, which is a massive 4 points for them, because it does keep them in range of the top 4, just out of the top 4 on percentage at the moment. Meanwhile, Geelong probably effectively finishes their season. They're a game and a half outside the top 8 with 3 games to go. So they would need to win all 3 and get a bit of luck. And in all honesty, they're not going to get much luck because they got Brisbane Lions this week, and that's not going to be an easy match for them. A look at some of the best players in this one. Multiple goal scorers. One for Richmond, Emily Agassiz kicked 3. And then for Geelong, Jacqueline Parry kicked 2. Best players on the ground. No surprise here. Mon Conti, as always, was up there in the ball winners. She had 27 touches, 7 clearances. Disappointing for her, 1 goal, 3. Did get the 1 goal, but kicking the 3 behinds was probably a little disappointing for her. Poppy Kelly in the ruck was really good, 15 touches. 39 hitouts, dominated the hitouts all day long. And then a lot of other good players that got plenty of the ball. Egan had 23 touches. Sharon had 17 and a goal. So a good performance from most of Richmond. For the Cats, Maloney, 22 touches and a goal, was possibly their best player. Nina Morrison was really good with 22, as was Webster with 21. But in the end, Richmond take the 4 points. On to Saturday evening football, it was Brisbane Gold Coast. The Q Clash, as they call it up in Queensland. And Brisbane won it 6-8-44, plays 4-4-28. Probably sort of what is expected. Brisbane, certainly one of the top 4 teams. Top 5, maybe. They're definitely one of the top 3, in all honesty. Whereas Gold Coast aren't terrible. They've had a lot of close losses this year. It's surprising that they haven't won a bit more than they have. But their season's been rough. 0 wins, 7 losses and a draw now. Their season hasn't been as bad as that reads. I still think they're better than probably 2, maybe 3 teams above them. They've just had a rough run, in all honesty. And they started this one all right. They kicked 2 goals in the first quarter to 2-2 for Brisbane. But Brisbane kicked away early in the second quarter and then just kind of held that the rest of the way. And in the end, won it reasonably comfortably without absolutely demolishing them. Plus 16 inside 50s for Brisbane. Plus 6 clearances for Brisbane. They did what they needed to without excelling, in all honesty. Not their best performance of the season for the Lions, but certainly got the job done. And in the end, that's all you need to do in these games at the moment. Multiple goal kickers. There was 3 of them in this one. Taylor Smith for the Lions kicked 2 goals too. And then for Gold Coast, Taya Oliver and Tara Bohana both kicked 2 each. Best players, Ali Anderson for Brisbane racked him up again. 31 touches, 8 tackles, 6 clearances. Really good performance. Hard to see her not getting the 3 votes in this one. Talia Hickey was good in the ruck. Isabel Dawes got plenty of it, 27 touches. Overall, the rest of their team for Brisbane were just consistent across the board. For Gold Coast, Daisy Darcy got a bit of it, 14 touches, 9 tackles, 7 clearances. Charlie Rowbottom, not her best performance of the season. Outstanding player, typically. She still had 22 touches, 6 clearances, so was good and was certainly in their top 3 players. Not as damaging as perhaps some of her previous games this year, though. One more Saturday night game, and it was Fremantle-Carlton, and Freo drop another one at home. So 2 in a row they lose at home after losing to Hawthorn last week. They lose to Carlton this week. They still sit reasonably comfortably on the ladder with 5 wins, 3 losses, sitting 6th on the ladder. But back-to-back losses just starts to creep into their minds a little bit. They can't do what their men's team did and just keep losing. They need to turn it around with a win this week, you'd hope. They've got the derby over there against West Coast, so a big opportunity for them to turn their form around, and 1 win probably is enough for them to play finals. 6 wins this season. I've looked at the numbers a little bit. I think 6 wins will be enough to play finals. However, there's plenty of teams chomping at the bit to get to 6. So I wouldn't guarantee 6 being there, but with their percentage, as long as they don't go and get flogged in the next couple of weeks, they should be fine. But they do need to start winning some games, otherwise they will not be faring too well when it comes time for finals. Lost to Carlton here was certainly disappointing. Carlton getting just their 3rd win of the season. Freo kicked away early, looked good early. Carlton took the lead into quarter time though, held that on until the 3rd quarter. Fremantle took the lead going into the last quarter, but Carlton kicked the only 2 goals of the last quarter through Moody and Shearer, and ended up holding on for a tight win of 4 points. Not much more to say other than disappointing result for Freo. Look at some of the numbers behind it. It was a very tight game. Both teams very similar disposals, only 1 between them. 1 kick, 2 handballs in between them. Dead level on inside 50s, 32 apiece. Clearances +6 for Carlton, so they did control the middle a little bit. Contested footy similar, uncontested footy similar. Turnovers were high for Carlton, 66 to Freo 62, but in the end it didn't matter. 5 goals 4 for Carlton, 4 goals 6 for Freo. So wasted opportunities, high tackle game, and in the end the Blues get the 4 points. 2 multiple goal scorers in this lowish scoring affair. Keely Skeeper for Carlton kicked 2 goals. And for Fremantle, Ebony Antonio kicked 2 goals as well. Best players, both ruckmen were really good. Mimstrom, probably the better of the 2. 12 touches, 47 hitouts. Jessica Good for Carlton did her job, 34 hitouts. Still played really well, but maybe just got beaten by Mimstrom, which is no mean feat. She's a very good ruckman. Carlton's best players, Keely Shara, 17 touches and a goal. Guren, 24 touches, was good. And Skepper, 13 touches, 2 goals. For the Dockers, Pugh, 21 touches, was good. Gabriella Newton and McCarthy both racked up the tackles, 9 tackles, 10 tackles, and 23 touches for Newton as well. So some good numbers, but in the end, Carlton get, I won't say the comfortable victory, but an easy enough victory nonetheless. Jumping on to Sunday matches. First up, North Melbourne, Sydney. So we had 2 of the better teams play on Sunday. One in this one and one in the last one. And they resulted in a couple floggings First up, North Melbourne winning by 60 points on Sydney in the end. It didn't always look like it was going to be that much of a margin. They were only 20 points up at half time, but late in the second and then early in the third was absolute one-way traffic, and looked like at one point it was going to be even more. They kicked about 5 or 6 goals in about 8 to 10 minutes of football, did North Melbourne, and it really looked like they could tear them apart. In the end, 60 points is still a flogging, no doubt about it. Not that surprising with where the two teams are at this season. North Melbourne are clearly, I think, the team to beat at the moment. They're going to be very hard to beat for the premiership. Meanwhile, Sydney, injuries and a bunch of other stuff has just got in the way of their season. I don't think they were ever going to really be challenging North Melbourne this year, but they were a team that potentially was looking at finals pre-season. That's well and truly gone for them now. They're 2 wins, 6 losses. They've lost their last 4 in a row. They do play Gold Coast this week, so they get a chance for a win, but at best, they're going to finish on 5 wins, which is not going to be enough to play finals this year. Look at the stats. No surprise here. Disposals, 257 to 200 in favour of North Melbourne. Interestingly here, though, is Sydney won the inside 50s 32 to 31 and lost the game by 60 points. Sydney weren't great going forward, but North Melbourne were insanely good. Every time they went forward, it looked damaging. It looked like they were going to kick a goal. They just had players out. They were making the right moves, the right decisions, and looked very dangerous as any team has going forward this season, I think. Dominated clearances, did the Roos, plus 17. Controlled football, in all honesty, most of the way. They did turn it over a little bit, a few more times than their opposition, but they kicked straight, which is one of the major issues for teams in AFLW this year. But they kicked 14-3, so major props for that. Tackle game was huge for both teams. 93 for the Roos and 108 for Sydney. Kangaroos are one of the better tackling teams in the comp, but got beaten in the tackle count by 15. 108 for Sydney is a big number. Best players in this one. Lots of multiple goal kickers. First up for the Roos, Alice O'Loughlin and Jasmine Garner both kicked 3 goals apiece. Randall and Martin both kicked 2. And then for Sydney, Alexia Hamilton kicked 2 as well. Best players. I think you got to go with Jasmine Garner for best on in this one. 24 touches, 3 goals, 7 clearances, 9 tackles. Outstanding performance. Ash Riddell, as always, 30 touches. Got plenty of it. Alice O'Loughlin also kicked 3 goals from 15 touches. Good performance from her. Mia King, Edie, Rennie, Emma King, all really good. Meanwhile, for Sydney, their best player was undoubtedly Sophia Hurley. 23 touches, 15 tackles, 5 clearances, 546 metres gained. But in all honesty, didn't have enough support. Only other players that were probably in the best list was probably Alexia Hamilton, 11 touches, 2 goals, 21 hit-outs. But in all honesty, just a complete domination, even if the inside 50s don't say that. North Melbourne just looked really, really good when going forward. Jumping on to the second last game of Week 7, and it's St Kilda Melbourne, both playing their second game of the week. And St Kilda go down in this one, 5 straight 30 to 6-8 44 for the Demons. Big win for the Demons, keeps their finals chances alive. They're 4 wins, 4 losses. Their percentage is really poor. But with 3 games to go, if they win them all, they will play finals. If they win 2, they could still play finals and most likely will. If they only win 1, then their season's done. But they probably also need to think about their percentage. At the moment, they're minus 100 points roughly. I think minus 95. So they need to try and make up 95 points probably in the next 3 weeks, as well as winning at least 2 of them. But if they win 3, they'll be fine, and it won't matter too much about percentage. In terms of qualifying for finals, at least. They do have a tough game this week, though, against Richmond. They controlled this game most of the way, kicking the only 2 goals of the first quarter. It was still 2-goal margin at half time. St Kilda did get back within a kick midway through the third quarter, but Melbourne kicked away again, ended up winning it by 14 points. Melbourne were definitely the better team in this. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Plus 11 inside 50s, plus 30 disposals, plus 16 clearances is a domination again. A lot of teams dominated clearances this weekend, and pretty much every time a team dominates clearances this weekend, they all won. So it is very important to get first use on the ball, both out of the centre and out of the normal stoppages. Plus 30 contested possessions is a massive number. And to get that much more contested football than the opposition and still have less turnovers than the opposition is a really good sign for Melbourne. So maybe they're getting back towards their best with this one. They've had a rough season, but they certainly dominated most of this game. They kicked 6 goals 8, whereas St Kilda kicked 5 straight. So it quite easily could have been even worse for the Saints in this one. I look at some of the better players in this one. First of all, multiple goal scorers. Jesse Wardlaw, again, kicked 3 in this one. And Eden Zanka kicked 2 for the Demons. Best players. First of all, Melbourne, a couple good players. Eliza McNamara, 31 touches, did her role well. 578 metres gained as well. Kate Hoare gets plenty of it again. 21 touches, 11 tackles, tackling machine as always. Tyler Hanks was good with 22 touches. And then for St Kilda, Serene Watson, 19 touches, was solid. Ashley Richards, 14 touches and a goal. Jesse Wardlaw, as I said, 3 goals from 9 touches. Jumping on over to the final game of the round, and it was GWS hosting Adelaide, and this was one-way traffic. 4-4-28 to GWS to 14-8-92. Ends up being a 64-point win to the Crows. Could have been an extra couple-goal win, but GWS kicked 2 goals in the last minute and a half of this game just to make the second half look a little bit better, because it wasn't looking great in that second half. Overall, dominated from basically start to finish. It was 6 goals to 2 at half time, and up until 2 minutes to go in the last quarter, Adelaide had kicked 8 goals 5 to 0-3 for GWS before they kicked their last 2 goals. A look at the stats won't surprise anyone. Domination by the Crows, 50-14 inside 50s in this one. Absolute control of the match. Plus 70-ish or 60-something disposals for the Crows is controlled the match. Hit out 65-26. So kind of been a GWS issue all year. They just can't win hit outs. And I mean, it's not the end of the world hit outs, but it certainly gives Adelaide or their opposition the first use of it. And Adelaide made use of it here, 36-29 clearances. Adelaide just has too good of a midfield not to make use of that ruck work. 125-96 contested possessions. Dominated uncontested by plus 40. Dominated turnover game. It was just clean, effective football by Adelaide, in all honesty. Bounced back from a disappointing loss earlier in the round to get a really good win here. Multiple goal scorers. There was 4 of them. For Adelaide, there was Danielle Ponta with 3, Caitlin Gould with 3, Niam Kelly with 2, and then for GWS, Zali Goldsworthy kicked 2. Best players, without a doubt, 3 votes here goes to Ebony Marinoff. Absolute gun, and showed it again here. 41 disposals, 17 tackles, 12 clearances, 3 goal assists. You name it, she did it in this game. Absolutely outstanding performance from start to finish by Ebony Marinoff. I would have her clearly out in front of the MVP voting at the moment for this season. It's going to be hard to catch her because she is playing unreal football. Take nothing away from her teammates though, because they're also doing a good job. Anne Hatchard again, 21 touches, 10 tackles, really good. Jessica Allen in the ruck, as I said, dominated the hitouts, 48 in this one, with 15 disposals. Danielle Ponta, 12 touches, 3 goals. Caitlin Gould, 11 touches, 3 goals. Really good performance from Adelaide for the Giants. Rebecca Beeson, 22 touches, 10 tackles, 7 clearances. Tried all day. Zali Goldsworthy, as I said, kicked a couple goals. But in the end, just I guess the class of Adelaide prevailed in this one. And I think without a doubt are probably in the top 3 teams, maybe top 4 if you include Hawthorn, who I think you kind of have to at this point. But yeah, I think they're still in the top 3 in my opinion. I think North Melbourne is clearly first. I think Brisbane, Adelaide second, third. I think Hawthorn just behind those 2 in 4th. Little bit of a gap to Richmond in 5th, and then I feel like it's nobody else really has much of a chance this season. Could be wrong, things could change, but I think that's how it's playing out at the moment. So that is a look at all the round 7 games. We'll now have a look at how my tipping went this weekend, and it went pretty well. A lot of green there. We started with St Kilda. We got that one correct. We did get Adelaide wrong. They lost it by 4 points. Disappointing, but I still think they were good enough to win that. They just didn't. We got Port Adelaide right. We got Essendon right. We got Hawthorn right. They won by a lot more than 5 points, though. Richmond we got right. Brisbane we got right. We got Fremantle wrong again. They've let us down a couple times in the last week or two. North Melbourne, no doubt about that one. St Kilda lost to Melbourne, so we got that right. And we finished with Adelaide beating GWS. So we got 9 out of 11 to go 50 out of 71 for the season. Pretty good return so far. Let's jump into round 8 football. We start off with Carlton Bulldogs Thursday night football. So there's no Tuesday or Wednesday games this week, which is a little bit of a relief for some. I don't know what I'm going to do with my nights on Tuesday and Wednesday now. I do. I'll just be watching replays. But it's always good to have live football. Not too many teams would I be saying Carlton are going to go in pretty strong favourites against, but Bulldogs is one of them. Bulldogs really struggling at the moment, all season really. They had a couple okay weeks, but overall their season's been a real big struggle. And their last 2 weeks have been really quite bad. So I don't have much faith in the Doggies getting into this one or being competitive. Carlton coming off a good win last weekend against Fremantle. So I think you have to go Carlton there. Friday night footy, this is probably one of the better and more important games of the round. It's 9th and 8th. Port Adelaide, St Kilda playing against each other. Both teams 4 wins, 4 losses. Percentage very similar. 110 for St Kilda, 106 for Port Adelaide. So the winner of this doesn't get a ticket to the grand final, to the finals. Sorry, doesn't get a ticket to the finals, but certainly gives themselves a good chance because it gives you a win over the team that in all likelihood you're going to be fighting for finals with. So big chance for both teams. Port Adelaide have won their last 3. They win this, they win 4 in a row. Whereas I reckon if St Kilda lose this one, it might be all over for them. They've only won 1 out of 4 games. If they turn that into 1 out of 5, it's going to be hard to see them doing too well after a really strong start to their season. So that would be disappointing for them. Saturday football gets off to a cracker for Hawthorn. They played GWS, and they've already sealed a spot in the finals. A win here doesn't guarantee them top 4, but it certainly almost does. Like, with 3 games to go, they should probably win all 3 of them, in all honesty. And it's going to be hard for them to not finish top 2 from where they're at the moment, which would be massive if they were to host either Brisbane or Adelaide in week 1 of the finals. Next up, Sydney Gold Coast. Another game that won't have any bearing on finals. I would love to see Gold Coast win this, in all honesty. They've been close to a couple wins this year. I think they deserve one. Sydney have had a rough year. This might be their chance for the Suns to get one. It might be one of their last chances to get a sneaky win for the year. Melbourne, Richmond, big complications in this game. If Richmond want to play top 4, make top 4, they have to win this game. no doubt about it. They're level on points with Adelaide, just down on percentage. But Adelaide, in all honesty, should win this weekend and probably win at least 2 of their 3 coming home. So Richmond don't want to lose any games if they want to be top 4. And this is a tough one because Melbourne are starting to show a little bit. They've won 3 in a row. So they're in with a chance to make finals all of a sudden, the Demons. A win here maybe would be huge for... Well, would definitely be huge for them. It's going to be tough for them to get a percentage booster out of it. But that doesn't mean that they can't. And, I mean, there's still 2 more weeks after that. The following week, they do have to play Hawthorn, which, again, is not an easy one. So if they are to make finals, they have to do it the hard way. But they do finish with Collingwood in round... I was going to say 18. In round 10. So if they can get the next 2 wins and play Collingwood in the final round to play finals, they're a chance. You can't rule it out. So they've got a tough couple of weeks ahead of them, but if they want to play finals, they've got no choice but to win. Next up is the derby, West Coast Fremantle. West Coast, their season relies on them winning this. Their percentage is quite poor. If they lose this, you can wrap it up. I don't think they're playing finals if they lose this week. Well, technically they could still get to 6 wins. It's not going to be easy. They have Geelong and Sydney to finish it, so they could win both of those, but their percentage isn't great. They really almost have to win all 3. Meanwhile, Fremantle, their season's falling apart a little bit of late. They've lost their last 2 after looking really good at 5 wins and a loss. They need to bounce back with a win here. Their chances of top 4 maybe have fallen apart the last 2 weeks with losses to Hawthorn and Carlton. They're still technically a chance for top 4, but their percentage is so far off the 5 teams above them at the moment. It would take a miracle. So the best if they get an extra win on those teams, they could jump one of them, but in all likelihood, they're probably looking at 6th on the ladder. They should win at least one of their last 2, and without too much difficulty. In fact, they probably should win both of their last 2 because they play GWS and Bulldogs. So if they were to win this week against West Coast, they set themselves up to finish with a total of 8 wins, 3 losses if they can win this week, which may be good enough for top 4, bottom spots of the top 4, maybe, depending on how dominant the teams above them are. But at worst, it's going to be a home week 1 final. It's hard to see them falling below 6th from where they are right now. We move on to the Sunday games. There's 3 of them, and I'm not sure if any of them are going to be close. They might be. The first 2 have a chance, the third one does not. Geelong, Brisbane in Geelong. Geelong's season had high hopes early on, but it's fallen apart. After 8 weeks, they're 2 wins, 5 losses and a draw. They were expecting to play finals, and they're just not going to go close. This is not an easy one for them either. They play the Lions, who are, without a doubt, one of the top 4 teams in the competition. They're going to be playing deep into September, you'd imagine, and it's hard to see a world where Geelong win this one based on what we've seen. Going forward, Brisbane, this might be their toughest game coming home as well. They have Sydney, and then they have, St Kilda. So potentially 3 wins coming home, you'd imagine, for the Lions, but at the same time, 2 trips to Melbourne, 1 to Geelong and 1 to St Kilda. They could potentially lose either of those. Meanwhile, Geelong, their season's done. There's no doubt about it. They can't play finals, even if they were to win every game coming home. But they have one of the toughest run homes imaginable for any team. They have Brisbane this week. Next week they do have West Coast, so that is a winnable game. But then they round it out with a game against Adelaide. So not an easy run home for them, and I don't see them really. They probably win one match out of their last three. Next up, we have Essendon Kangaroos, Windy Hill, Sunday afternoon. Kangaroos are absolutely flying. Bombers are playing good football. Don't get me wrong. I think Bombers are one of the better teams, certainly in the top 8, without a doubt. I have them probably 6th, 7th best team in the competition at the moment. But Kangaroos are clear best team in the comp. And based on what we saw on the weekend, I can't see a world where the Kangaroos lose this one. Which puts the Bombers in a little bit of a precarious spot. Because either Port Adelaide or St Kilda will win this week, so they will level up with the Bombers on points, and in all honesty, probably be very close, if not ahead of them on percentage by the end of this weekend, which all of a sudden puts them in danger of missing finals. They do have a pretty tough run home. They've won their last 4 games coming into this week, but their last 2 weeks are not going to be easy for the Bombers. They play Richmond in round 9. And then Carlton in the final round, so they should beat Carlton. Richmond won't be easy. Is one win going to be enough for them? Maybe not. They might need 2. So they might be able to limp into finals, but it's also going to be quite tough with their run home to play finals. But they're certainly, I think, in the top 9 teams. I think there's 10 teams with a realistic chance of finals at the moment. I think your top 9 plus Melbourne all have a chance. I don't think West Coast will play finals. They've been really good this year. I just don't think they're good enough just yet. But their future is bright. Final game of the round. This will, in all honesty, be an absolute whitewash. It's hard to see a world where Collingwood are competitive here. The Crows are absolutely flying, and Collingwood are all but flying. It should be a domination for Crows from start to finish. They're sitting 4th on the ladder. They don't have the toughest run home. They obviously have Geelong in the final round, but next weekend is potentially a game that will either result in Adelaide finishing top 4 or not, because they play North Melbourne. It's going to be must-watch football on Friday, October 25, so get ready for that one, but we've got another week to go before we get to that. So that's all the games for this week. We'll now quickly look at my tips. We've got Carlton to beat Bulldogs by 13. We've got Port Adelaide to beat St Kilda by 8. We have Hawthorn dominating GWS by 40. Sydney to beat Gold Coast by 11, although I will be cheering on the Suns, so I would love to see them win that one. Richmond to beat Melbourne by 7 and effectively end Melbourne's season, but it could go either way. Fremantle to beat West Coast by 13. Brisbane to beat the Cats by 20. North Melbourne should be too strong for the Bombers here, and the Crows will be way too good for Collingwood. That rounds out our tips for the week. We're going pretty good so far this season. Let's hopefully have another good one. That's a wrap on footy for AFLW Week 8. Thanks for tuning in. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you're not subscribed. Why the hell not? Join in the fun. Bring out podcasts a couple times a week. We have other bonus videos going live every week as well. Plenty of content for you to enjoy. Appreciate you for tuning in. This was episode 67. Next AFLW one will be 69. So thanks for tuning in. We'll be back on Monday. No, this is Monday. We'll be back on Friday with the AFL Men's wrap of trade week and a lot more content. So thanks for tuning in. This has been All Aussie Rules. We'll catch you on the next one.